Namaste and a very good evening. I would like to dedicate the next 17 and a half plus minutes to Panjalama, late Panjalama, a construction worker, a woman of grit and determination, courage and conviction, a woman who showed me the way 30 years ago from 1978, a woman who said, "Don't look back. When you're faced with challenges, when there are barriers to be broken, don't look back, and you can change communities." And so it was that in 1978, when I came to live in Bangalore, I was excited, I was thrilled. I was told that this is a city apart, like none other. And after a couple of months of settling into this city, I decided that I would seek out opportunities to be able to give something of myself to the city. I had a lot of time on my hands, and could I do something? Started wandering around the streets and felt that it was not just a city apart, but a city where, in a class apart by itself, but a city where the classes were apart from each other. And it was here that began the Tale of Two Cities story in my life. And every time I walked around and I saw these facades, the glass buildings, the city beautiful with its gardens and its fountains, I couldn't help but look at the people who built up this city, who tended to its gardens, who made it so wonderful for all of us to live by doing the domestic work in our homes, giving us a chance to go in time to where we want to go, and just making the city beautiful. And yet, where did they live? They lived in multi-storied buildings like the one you see behind here, and they built the multi-storied buildings that you see up there. And yet, these were the people who were in so many ways voiceless, absolutely had no chance of, they were looked at as ISOs, they were looked upon as vice dens. I learned so much by just entering this slum community called Lakshmipuram on the Chinmaya Mission Hospital Road. And it was late in the evening, it was dusk, it was getting dark, and I went there because that's the time people come back home from their work. And as I stepped into this community, you can see with the density in that area, 127 families lived in less than an acre of land. And there was a very little small pathway that led to the corner of the entire plot. And as I walked forward, I saw some people and I said, "Is there anything I could do here?" I was barely in my 20s and not even in my mid-20s then. And I just felt that if I could go there and say, "Can I be of some service here? Could I do something?" And they all looked at me, and a few of them rather menacingly, and they said, "What do you think you could do for us?" And I was a little taken aback. I said, "I'm not so sure, but I could share your thoughts, see what we could do together perhaps." And they said, "Do you think you could get us electricity within the next 3 months?" And I said, "No, I don't think I could do that, but I could try with you. Have you tried?" And they said, "For many years we have tried to do it, and we haven't really succeeded." And so it was that, thrown by this challenge, told by the people there, a lot of them who had been absolutely oppressed and exploited by society around them, who had not been accepted in the neighborhood as being an integral part of that neighborhood, only because they lived in houses like what we see here, only because they were in a slum, and that slum was not looked upon as people, it was looked upon as a place and not as people. And this came up every time I went there. I had to find myself going into the graveyard opposite to conduct the meetings. There was no place to sit anywhere. The same graveyard served as their toilets in the morning and as our meeting place in the evening. And that is where much of what I learned about this city, much of what I learned about the wonderful, productive citizens the city's poor lived and what they did the whole day long. And so it was that I found that it was a tic-tac-toe game that their life was engulfed in. There were issues, and there were situations where there were fires, floods. The Yijipura slum was burning all night because the National Games village had to come up. The Vayalikaval flood was flooded. The Someshwara slum was flooded. 1987 washed everyone off into the storm drains. We had to run for the bodies to be fished out from the storm drains, taken to the graveyards. There were not even the graveyards for the poor in the city. And so I realized that it was not just natural calamities that they were faced with. They were faced with man-made calamities too. There were disasters like this. Communities were under threat. There was a constant threat of eviction. On the day this picture was taken, I was in a hospital in Jayanagar. I got frantic phone calls, people calling and saying, the bulldozers are here. This is a slum called Amarjyoti in Domlur. It still remains a slum, but people have been there for the last 30 years. These were the brick makers. These were the people who built the entire layout behind Amarjyoti. They've even built a temple, but now the corporation and the corporators want to remove the hut so they can make a road for the temple, and the people have no place to go. The bulldozers had come. There was absolutely no chance to breathe. We're talking about breaking barriers. There was a barricade of policemen that day. We had to jump the barricade. We had to get in front of the bulldozers, and that is what we did. I was threatened with dire consequences. The police decided they would put me behind. But about that time, the bulldozers also went back, and I didn't have to go behind. So I found myself not an architect, not a planner, not a designer, but kind of bringing it all together in these housing programs that we had to take up for the urban poor. The whole crux of the problem was the land and housing issues that the poor were faced with. They had no place. They had no legal space in the city because we had to get rid of them and kind of hide them away. And Manju would have been standing here with 2 children had it not been for a stray dog that walked into our house because our house did not have a door, took away the baby. And the day I took this picture, she had lost the baby. And I was going to a meeting in Bombay, in Mumbai, where they were talking about affordable shelter for the poor. So, stories of Manju could not continue. What we had to do was look at the collective wisdom, the collective empowerment, the collective thinking, and the collective knowledge of people coming together. And that was in abundance. So in unity lay their strength. On the roadsides, by the street corners, wherever we got a space, we had meetings. We gathered, the women especially, because that's where we found we could really make a change, make a difference. And then the way the women, this is Sanyasi Gunte slum, the more they came together, they had to fight about the beautification of the city, because the lake by their side was beautiful, yes, but they're not the ones who dump the garbage there. They are the ones who clean the garbage by the lakeside. And they are the ones who, given a better place like they have today, make sure that the environment is clean too. So these are the people there. We were having a meeting and they got their housing subsequently. The slide you saw earlier of Lakshmipuram, people build their own homes, people build their own housing, and this one went on to win a National Habitat Award, not because we built houses, but because we used housing as a tool for change, and people began to change their lives. There were no contractors in this project, 127 houses built by the people themselves, understanding the affordability, understanding their responsibilities, knowing fully well that they're not going to cheat the banks, knowing fully well that they will pay back for their housing, knowing fully well that if they had a secure place to live, that they would make the city even better place to live. And so it was not the award won because we built houses, but the award won in Sarojama going to China and addressing the Beijing conference after all these small community meetings where 5,000 people stood up and applauded her for her success story. And so on, it went on. This is the Wahab Garden slum. Why am I showing these pictures? Because, friends, we need to integrate the poor with every other part of the city fabric. They are an integral part of the city, and integrating them, giving them an address that says not Wahab Garden slum, but Wahab Garden layout, makes the difference and makes a big difference to the city too. So here, as housing improved, their lifestyles changed, they had an economic asset, they were able to, even here, we have a lot of children that went abroad for studies subsequently and went up for higher studies. And so it was in Hosker Ali slum that I first showed, Janshakti Nagar. They renamed themselves as Janashakti Nagar, power to the people. Every single house you see on the screen was built by the people themselves. There was no one else to say, uniform housing is good, a color this way is good, multi-tenements are good, or anything that policy pushes down the throats of the poor. These people were determining policy. In fact, they influenced policy. Today, the Rajiv Awas Yojana, the RAY policy, is very much influenced by the in situ participatory development of housing taken up by these people. And so it was not just that housing was a tool for change by building better communities, but housing became a tool for change when we look at the way India was burning during the Godhra riots. The people of Pasi Garden slum, the people of this particular slum rebuilt their homes together and renamed it Bandhavya Nagar, that they were bonded together, Hindus and Muslims coming together, and that is what housing did for them. So through Avas, the organization we had started, we did a lot of land and housing projects, programs, solutions, not because that was by choice what we could do, but because that was the need of the hour, and we had to find an answer for the urban poor to get integrated into the slums. We had succeeded by this time when there was a knock on my door, and I heard chaos and commotion on the street. And when I went out, I saw this very, very frail-looking, weak man, Mr. Purushottam, a wonderful person, who was there trying to sell some artwork done on textile, gate to gate. The dogs, the security, they were not letting him in. He was crying in hunger. And when we went out and met him, I happened to be there that day, he said that a lot of people, weaving community, lived in utter penury, utter exploitation in the villages of Srikalahasti in Andhra Pradesh. But there was an art form that was flourishing once upon a time, in Sri Krishna Deva Raya's time, and maybe about 60 years ago. And it was all dead, but the artists were trying to keep it alive. And he was starving, and he was using that as his economic possibility for his economic stability. And so it was that I decided to go there to that community. And when I went there, I saw all these women sitting under the trees. They were from the weaving community, and they were desperate to break their families from the indebtedness to the moneylenders. They wanted a chance. They wanted to learn. They wanted to move on. Little Kanchana used to just sit with them. She was still too young to become part of the artisan community as such. She circled there, in that circle. And from here, we went on with the birth of Dwaraka, the development of weavers and rural artisans in Kalamkari art, like this. And they grew into the Dwarka Plus Society, registered by the people themselves, owned by the people themselves. Hundreds of women, Dalit women, families that were not in this fold of development of the art, all got into this. And Kanchana became their leader. She is now the Secretary General of the Dwarka Plus Society. And it kept growing. It grew as a movement. It kept adding on more and more women. They learned the skill. And today they own 4 showrooms. They have a turnover that's huge. They have an art, a business. It's commercial. We also have a Dwarka Global. They have gone worldwide, and we are not able to meet orders, but we would still take more orders. And therefore, that beacon of light is shown. We see it there. When all those hands go up, what they are saying is, yes, we can. If we want to, yes, we can. And yet I know still many a dream remained a pipe dream, and we had not been able to fulfill. All that we could do, we had done in fighting crises. We had established homes for people. We had even established livelihoods and women empowerment. But what happened to the child? And it was misery to see the child come back home 3:34 from whatever environments they were in and go into a situation where they had their fathers probably in an inebriated state, where their brothers were just lolling around by the pubs in the neighborhood, where they were playing marbles and gambling away their lives at that young age. And so we thought we needed to do something. And when we started doing it through the process of education, learning, play, teaching, etc., this little girl from a tribal colony wrote in Telugu, Allah, which means wave, and Tala, which means head. And she said, right there in your head are the waves. Those are the Allahs. Make use of the waves, and the waves of change will catch up in society. And so it was inspired by these girls. We started the Drishya School right here for the slum children of Bangalore. We run it here. Aditi Mace has been exceedingly helpful, supportive. Gita Narayan and others have helped us grow in this movement. And we learned a lot about education from the educationists, and we gave back a lot to the communities where we were working. And the children of Drishya taught us that when you find your feet, the universe is very, very different. and they became our teachers, so to say. And this was what it was all about. Breaking barriers was these little children telling me, don't look back. If you look back, you're going to be afraid. You won't climb that tree up. So don't look back. And so we didn't when we opened up yet another door of opportunity for the children who lived in the slums and called it Jivanotsava. That is the celebration of life for all those who wanted to discover themselves, who wanted to feel that wind in the air, for those who wanted to say, yes, I am somebody. And so it was that when we took them to a campus we're developing an hour from here, near Chikballapur, called Viveka, Devi pirouetted on her feet with her hair flying high, and she said, oh my God, there is a sky for a roof. She was from a slum here in Bangalore. And she said, there is a sky for a roof, there are hills for the walls, there's water bodies around me, and there's wind on my cheeks. What more can I ask for? I feel I found myself. And now you listen to Devi for the next 30 seconds.
voting power ಇದೆ. voting power ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಯಾವುದು ಹಾಕಬೇಕು ಏನು ಹಾಕಬೇಕು ನಮಗೆ ರಾಜಕೀಯದಿಂದ ನಮಗೆ ಯಾವ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗಿದೆ ಯಾವುದು ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇರೋದೇನು ಅಂತ ಅವರು ಯಾವುದು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಆ ಒಂದು ಸಂದರ್ಭಕ್ಕೆ ಏನ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೋ ಆ ಬಿರಿಯಾನಿ ಆ ಸೀರೆ ಮೂಗ್ಬಟ್ಟು ಕಾಯ್ಸೇನು ಅದು ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಆಸೆ ಪಟ್ಟು ಯಾವ್ದು ತಂದ್ರೆ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ಒಂದಿನ ಮೀಟಿಂಗ್ ಇಟ್ಟು ನಾವು ಅದನ್ನ ತಡೆಗಟ್ಟಬಹುದು. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ತಿಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕು ಓಟು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಇರೋ ಓಟು ಎಷ್ಟು ಮುಖ್ಯ, ಒಂದೊಂದು ಓಟು ಎಷ್ಟು ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ವ್ಯಾಲ್ಯೂ ಇದೆ ನಮ್ಮ.
Well, in this clip, Devi is sharing about the power of voting. And she talks to an audience of 450 children and she says, if you understand that your vote is as critical, as important, as valuable as our lives are, the changes, then we will not sell our votes. And she's just come into the voting age. We will not sell our votes for biryani, saris or alcohol. Let's go and talk in our communities. That's what she's saying here. Let's go and talk to our people and tell them that our vote counts. She learned from Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who said that each vote counts. And today, as we go into change, as we start searching for answers, as we want to know what is going to be the next political scenario in the country, anyone ready to join Devi? You have a political leader in her. You have a new generation of youth ready to vote, ready to bring about change. And I think we can all form a new party with them as leaders. And so it is, my friends. I think it's important that if we can look into their eyes, if we can decide that we could be a lot of heart, a little bit of mind, set out to wipe those tears, but not with sorrow or despair, but with a belief and faith that we can make a change, then I think those eyes speak to us volumes that we truly, truly can make a difference. And I have endless number of stories we could share to say that, yes, indeed, these people are our wealth, they are our resource, they are the ones who can really make the change. And therefore, let us believe that a small body of determined spirits, fired by an unquenchable faith in their mission, can alter the course of history, as Gandhiji told us. Thank you.